Happy New Year, Purpose Chasers! Are you ready to make 2025 your best year yet? Join me for our 2025 Pillar Planning Retreat. This is a 4-hour live virtual training where we will dive deep into the 6 pillars of wealth and help you set clear, actionable goals for this year. This is not a pre-recorded session. You will be joining me live, where we will work together in real time to create a proven roadmap to success and help you align your vision with intentional action. So whether you're refining existing goals or setting brand new ones that fully align with who you are now, you'll leave with this clarity and strategy that most people just don't get, but it's what's going to make 2025 your most transformative year yet. And most importantly, it's one of the most affordable ways that you can work with me in this season. So don't miss this chance to engage and have an incredible experience with an incredible community as we plan for results, not resolutions. Reserve your spot now for this hands-on experience at our Pillar Planning Retreat. It's time to set yourself up for success. So go to patricewashington.com/pillar retreat. That's patricewashington.com/pillar retreat.
Instead of thinking about what can go wrong, start thinking about, well, what can go right? What else is possible? How does it get better than this? What am I willing to receive today that I previously wasn't available to receive?
I'm Patrice Washington, and this is the Redefining Wealth podcast, where authenticity leads to alignment and abundance. Join us each week as we peel back the layers on what wealth truly means and dive into conversations that inspire, connect, and empower you to live your richest life. Get ready to challenge the status quo. It's time to redefine wealth for yourself. You're listening to the Redefining Wealth podcast with Patrice Washington. Welcome back. This is the place that you come to each and every week to learn more about what it means to chase purpose, not money. In this community, we believe that wealth is so much more than just money and material possessions. We understand that it is truly about the original 12th century definition of wealth, which says it's about well-being and happiness. And that's in all these other parts of your life that are impacting your finances, even when you are not actively thinking about it. So if you want to learn more and figure out what pillar of wealth may be impacting you right now at this moment, go and take the Redefining Wealth quiz at patricewashington.com. I am so excited to jump into this episode with you today. I have someone that I got to meet online, and I can't wait to meet in person one day. Someone I've been watching for some time now, and I'm excited that he's here. And I really want to talk about self-integrity, because when I look at his Instagram feed, what I see is someone who is really holding themselves to self-integrity. And I do believe that that is the key to success, is first of all, being real with yourself and keeping promises to yourself and for yourself. So after the affirmation of the week, we're going to hear from Craig Siegel. Let me tell you more about him, though. He's a Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author of The Reinvention Formula. He's a global keynote speaker. He's a coach, an investor, advisor, TEDx speaker, and he is the host of the CLS Experience, which is not a top 1% podcast. It is a top 0.5% podcast. He's endorsed by luminaries like Jim Quick, Ed Milet, and this guy is an 8-time marathoner. Talk about keeping promises to yourself. His mastery, spirituality, energy, and inspirational wisdom have made his CLS brand one of the most engaging communities globally, and he's here to speak with us today. So after you hear this affirmation, the next conversation you will hear is my boy, Craig Siegel. Let's go. This week's affirmation is, intentional action is my only path forward. I refuse to stay inactive when I feel the call to step into something more aligned with my true self. I trust the desires within me are a compass guiding me toward my authentic purpose. I'm committed to taking bold action, knowing that every step forward brings me closer to the life that I am meant to live. I release any doubts or fears that try to hold me back and embrace the courage to move in the direction of my dreams. Today, I choose my soul's alignment over stagnation, and I boldly move forward with purpose and conviction, even if I'm only clear about my next best step. I trust that it will all be well. Declare with me today, intentional action is my only path forward. All right, Craig, welcome to the Redefining Wealth podcast.
First of all, no place in the world that I would rather be right now than right here with you. Your energy is magnetic. It's contagious. When we crossed paths and we did something else together, that's my soul sister. I'm so pumped to be here. Let's dive in. Let's have some fun. Let's get nuts.
Yes, let's do it. So listen, I was sharing in the intro that when I look at your Instagram feed, I see someone who is so committed to their self-integrity. And I think that a lot of times when we think about having integrity, we think about, well, do I do the things that I say I'm going to do, but really for other people, or really when other people are watching or when they can see? We kind of use it like a form of public accountability almost. And when I was reading about your 8th marathon this year, congratulations. That's
Thank you.
wild, Craig.
Thank you.
That's wild. I was like thinking about, you had this really beautiful caption about your transformation and about holding yourself to what you said you were going to do. And you just have so many beautiful thoughts around this. Before we really get to who you are today, I want to go back though, because I do also get the sense just from the brief conversation we got to have when I was on your show on Instagram with Dave Meltzer, who's also been on the podcast. I got the sense that you haven't always been this person. So I want to go back to before this transformative Craig. Who were you before and how did you get here?
Oh, no. Don't make me go back, Patrice. If you insist. So you couldn't be more accurate. Give your listeners a little bit of a backstory. So I feel like I've had 2 lives. The one that you see before today and the one prior to the pandemic, right before I reinvented myself. Essentially, I grew up, I showed glimpses of a lot of passion, determination in different things. For me, it was hard to find what I was really connected to. And so I graduated college and didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. And so I ended up on Wall Street. I was always infatuated with stocks and I was ambitious and I liked money and stocks and so forth. And so I ended up spending 13 years there. And I did the stock thing for a while, trading and so forth. And then I pivoted and started my own business. And just a whole different energy and vibe in that world. And I don't regret a thing because I became a man on Wall Street. I learned discipline and I learned so many things. And one of the key things that I picked up right when I got to Wall Street, because I was kind of a fish out of water, is I gravitated towards personal development. I didn't know that that would end up being my life, my mission, and my calling, but I used it to better myself, to expand my vessel, my capacity to receive, to be a better human being, for lack of better words. And I was so infatuated with the word development in personal development. Like, I didn't have a lot of confidence. I'm an introvert, which surprised people, but I was able to build my confidence, to be more assertive. And I was able to really just expand what I thought I was capable of doing. And from that, I had success on Wall Street. And success, right? Interesting word. What does that mean? And I love how you started the show, what your show is all about, how it's more about purpose than money. And to be clear, I think while we're having this human experience, we should all unapologetically desire to make a lot of money because that's what we could do great things with. But for me, during my Wall Street 13-year career, I measured success by money. And ultimately, what I found out is that feeling of feeling successful when you obtain good money and do well for yourself is fleeting. It doesn't last. In fact, anything materialistic that you chase in the 1% physical world will create moments of joy, but they will not last. And I speak from experience. And so eventually I wanted to do something more meaningful with my life. I always knew that I was here for more. I believed we all are. It was hard for me to put it together. I was so caught up in the Wall Street thing. A few things happened at once in my personal life that kind of brought me to a little bit of a rock bottom. My best friend, my dad, had gotten diagnosed with cancer, still battling. I had just got out of a very toxic relationship at the time, and I was just yearning for something more. And so that's when I started my marathon journey, and I'd never been a runner before, and that was cool. And it started to shape me, but ultimately I wasn't looking to become a professional runner. And then fast forward the pandemic, shut down my office, what I thought would be 2 weeks. Looking back now, like that's kind of comical. It was years. But at that moment, when I shut down my office for the first time in my life, Patrice, I got really quiet and I connected. And I'm very spiritual, not super religious, but spiritual. And for me, that's creator. For other people, it might be divine, source, Jesus, energy, whatever your thing is. And when I was able to connect, I became that channel. No interference, no distractions. And I started receiving the divine downloads. And it occurred to me in that moment that personal development is more than just an obsession. I think this is why I'm here. And so I started my CLS brand. I had no connections, no celebrity friends, no following at the time, but I felt very, very, very connected to this idea. And so I started putting out strategy, kind of build out my 10-lane highways of ways to make an impact and do business. And for the first time in my life, I was in alignment. It took off. I left Wall Street for good. Lots of blessings, lots of things have happened in the last few years, which kind of brought us to this moment. So kind of a long-winded answer, but at least now your audience has some context on just how empty I was inside compared to what we're doing today.
Oh, this is so good because to look at you now, and I love when someone tells a story that essentially says, you wouldn't know by looking at me, but because to look at you now and to see the platform that you've built and the alignment that you have in terms of all these incredible names. I saw when you celebrated your 300 episodes of your podcast and you look at the people that are on that image on your Instagram page. And I mean, you have heavy hitters. And to go from pre-pandemic, not knowing any of those people, not having this brand, not doing these things, to be at this place such a short time later is really impressive. So I want to go back when you talked about the toxic relationship and all of those things. When you were in that place, were you trying to actively get out, Craig? And this is a question because I feel that in order to redefine wealth, you have to first have an awakening. And a lot of times we don't necessarily experience that awakening, not because we're not experiencing life, but because we're not being honest about the life we're currently experiencing. When you were in the toxic relationship and all these other things were going on, were you actively talking to yourself like, this isn't right? Or were you just like, this is what life is? I don't know if there's anything else.
Beautiful question. So important because I know based upon doing homework and stats and research for our TED Talk, how many people struggle with this exact dilemma and question. And so I felt tugs at my heart and my soul that I was on a path of my soul contracting when it should be expanding. And I knew that there was something more, but I was so lost in the sauce and in that particular 1% world and my movie and a little bit of victim consciousness. Great things don't happen to me, or it's too late, or I'm too old, whatever. And it got tougher and tougher to reveal my own light. But ultimately, unfortunately, sometimes in life, you have to get to a place where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired and you consider the alternative, right? And so for me, the pandemic was so big. I should say the lockdown was so important for me because it created that space. And now I know that everybody listening to this should proactively create white space to reassess. For me, it was kind of a forced pivot. But when I got quiet and I just took a second and removed myself from the day to day, I realized how miserable I had been. And I would have actually rather died than chosen to go back and stay miserable on my own account. And so when I considered the alternative and I started getting those downloads, even though it's very scary to try something totally new, 35 years young, obviously depending upon who you ask, I might be young or old. But for me, the cost of inaction, I like to call it the COI, was way too high. The price was way too high. And so the fear of stepping into the unknown began to transform into excitement because when I stepped away, I realized how miserable I had been. So to answer the question and articulate a little bit smoother, there were glimpses that I knew that I was here for more, but I was so caught up in it that I didn't allow myself to consider a different narrative until I had the time to reassess. For anybody listening that might be going through that, don't wait for a pandemic. Proactively create the space so you can let the light in and begin to get those downloads.
Oh, Craig, you are preaching a word, brother. Listen, I'm about to change the episode title I was thinking about to The Cost of Inaction, because that is real. We say around here, it's one thing to have self-awareness and know what's wrong. It's another thing to not have soul awareness. And for me, that's the ability to own what you need to do next, like what your soul is literally calling you to do next. And that cost of inaction. When you think about, or if you've ever thought about, what if I just went back to doing the same old thing? Even though I felt that tug, I felt the nudge, I heard the whispers that I should go in this direction. What if I just allow myself to stay in this perception of possibly what everyone else thought was success because it looked good, I'm making money, I have the look and appearance of wealth and success and all this stuff, but I'm secretly miserable? I know you're newly married. I think that when I went on your show on Instagram, you were getting married like the next week or something like that. So you're
Yep.
newly married and all that. And you have this beautiful wife now, this beautiful relationship. What do you think could have happened if you stayed in that place, inactive?
A lot of abandoned dreams, unfulfillment, and quite frankly, a wasted human experience. Because I was a gladiator in the wrong arena. And I was able to figure it out. And I want anybody to know that's listening now, if you feel like you have to wake up every day and prime your state or feel depleted, or you have to psych yourself up just to do what you're doing in that day, it's probably not the right career for you. And there's a misconception that work is work. You're not going to love it. It pays the bills and you have hobbies. Incorrect. You should absolutely be obsessed with what you do. And because that energy is so pure and you want to share and help in whatever your arena is, the byproduct of that, well, you will make more money and wealth than you even know what to do with. But I don't want anybody to settle. You can absolutely identify the gifts that were given to you, because they're not ours. We're the managers of them. Figure out what they are and share them in our authentic, unique way and build a whole life around it. And so if I didn't have this realization or this spiritual awakening, I don't even know where that path would have gone. All I know is that I was going nowhere fast and something needed to change. And ultimately, you have to change the narrative in your movie. Instead of thinking about what can go wrong, start thinking about, well, what can go right? What else is possible? How does it get better than this? What am I willing to receive today that I previously wasn't available to receive? So even just asking these questions, you don't have to be super spiritual, but whether it's to yourself, you're connecting, you're meditating, every question you ask, you create a vessel. And that vessel has the equivalent amount of energy that it can manifest to fulfill that vessel. So I would encourage anybody, if you don't know what the next move is, but you know you're not in alignment, start asking questions. What else is possible? So you can get in alignment, make a big difference, and obviously a lot of wealth too.
Oh, Craig, man. So, so I literally have reimagined the foundation of redefining wealth based on what you just said. It is about asking ourselves better questions so that we can allow space to receive better answers. And the foundation of what I teach at the Institute for Redefining Wealth now are the authentic alignment tools, because so many of us are used to default thinking. So we ask really bad questions, right? It's like, well, how am I supposed to do that? And then you come through with a powerful question like that. What was I not available to receive before that I can now have today? Like, those are the types of questions that put a demand on your creativity. Those types of questions make you more resourceful. They make you look for, right? Like like they make you look for answers. And you not that you even have to go diving in to look. It's like when we ask the question, we literally just create, like you said, that vessel and that opportunity for the divine to just pour in. Like, oh, now that's a question. Let's go. Like, here we go. That's powerful.
Yeah. Because anytime we think that we have all the answers, number one, we're not allowing the light in. And just to be clear, I don't know how spiritual you want to get today, but when I say that, to even be spiritual, I would define that as that just means that you believe there's something else going on here beyond our logic. If you can subscribe to that, I encourage you to triple down on that, because all the stuff that we're doing here in the physical world, the grinding, the making stuff happen, hustling, that's all important and it's necessary. And yet it's not enough. And I just realized this with my 8th marathon, which is a totally different experience. At some point, you have to relinquish control to allow the light in. And that's when the biggest blessings, manifestations, opportunities, money, relationships happen, when you do that. So you have to be available for it. And asking questions keeps it open so that we can receive the answers, the downloads. Anytime we think we have all the answers, we're basically saying, whatever it is that you subscribe to, believe in, like God, creator, divine, I got this. Let me worry about this. Right? So we want to allow that energy in addition to doing the practical. Marry the spiritual with the practical, and that's when you're just open for endless miracles.
Yeah, so good. Are you ready to redefine wealth and transform your life? Join the Institute for Redefining Wealth. It's a 12-month journey to financial wellness using our unique 6-pillar framework. We'll be your accountability partner, offering clear success paths, resources, and the motivation you need to stay on track with your professional and financial goals. So act now to connect with purpose chasers from around the world as we all level up pillar by pillar to achieve the lives we desire. Our Getting Started section is the system I've used personally to see huge visions come to pass over and over again. It is the foundation for how you leverage the pillars to support what you say you want to create in and for your life. And then you'll use Pillar Foundations. This is where the juice is. This is how you'll begin your 30-day authentic alignment audit. It'll help you identify areas of your life that may be out of sync with your goals. As a member, you'll gain access to in-depth training modules, categorized podcast selections, monthly themes, and challenges with exciting cash and prize giveaways, plus exclusive bonus access and sneak peeks to more resources that will help you along your journey to redefining wealth. For more details, visit redefiningwealth.institute. That's redefiningwealth.institute to take your first step towards a transformed life today. I will see you in the Institute. Goodness, I'm like, oh, I'm trying to take notes. I rarely take notes while I'm serious. I rarely take my pen out and literally take notes while I'm in the interview. It's just not something that I typically do. I don't have that as a practice. But even when you said gladiator in the wrong arena, something that I've been saying for many years now is oftentimes we will use the right gift in the wrong ministry or in the wrong business, in the wrong place, which is the same, right? And then it makes us question the gift. It makes us feel like what we have, what we were literally gifted with, presented with at birth, born on purpose, with purpose, for this particular iteration, like dispensation of time, is not worth it. When you think about your life today, what things were you a gladiator in your former Wall Street life that you are now leveraging to be more in alignment in this part of your experience?
I was good in that world, in that industry. I was very, very determined. I worked hard. I always tried to do the right thing in a world where sometimes you don't see a lot of that. And I was successful in the fact that I was doing good business. I was making money for myself. And so with the realization and clarity that that was the wrong arena for me, a lot of those characteristics and traits were positive. And I was able to allocate those to my new life, to my new movie, to my new scene. That is discipline, hard work, tapping into a higher consciousness, studying, always being a student, And so now those characteristics and traits serve me a lot better because I'm in the arena of connecting to something much bigger and sharing that with the world and helping people marry that with their own business and build a life and career around it and so forth. None of that stuff was a waste. Sometimes we need to go on those paths and journeys. They bring us to who we are. And also, a lot of the things were good. They were just misplaced. Obviously, even those specific characteristics in my new world, I had to purify because often we get caught up in the desire to receive for the self alone, which is being connected to ego consciousness. And the ego consciousness is a very, very tricky thing because when you're in ego consciousness, you always have an agenda. Our ego represents our limited self, and our soul has only one job: to attach itself to the endless light. Endless meaning anything is possible, right? And so even that, I would encourage anyone to ask themselves right now, are you open to miracles in your life? And start connecting to that. And so a lot of the characteristics were good. I transferred them, but then also I had to purify them and make sure the consciousness was correct. I think it's all about consciousness and a lot of the wisdom that I study. So you can do the same thing with a totally different consciousness and have a totally different result. So you always want to make sure that your intentions are pure. There's no agenda. You're not doing it for the need for recognition. And if you can do it from that, you will open yourself up to amazing blessings and miracles.
I always say that. I always feel that no matter what the season, no matter what the climate, politically, otherwise, no matter any of that, I always feel like I will be fine because I move with pure intentions. And I'm always trying to check in. Is my heart in the right place? Are my intentions in the right place? Are my motivations in the right place? And for me, anytime I feel any resistance or feel stuck, even like just things are not working out, it's one of the things that I do come back to. Like, let me check my heart posture. Like, why was I doing that? Was I looking for external validation? Was I only measuring success by literally numbers and not necessarily the impact of what I initiated or what I put out there? Because, Craig, that's hard, especially when you have already amassed some type of success. So people already see you as successful, Craig. You have this platform, you have created an opportunity for you to align with all these huge names in the marketplace and all that stuff. What happens when you put something out there and the numbers aren't there? Do you feel yourself slipping into the ego of like, "Ugh, what's going on?" Like, or do you still just, let me just ask, what happens for you? How do you navigate that place?
When you do it from the right consciousness, it's always going to be good or a net positive. Because even if you don't hit the numbers that you originally desired, that means, in my language, I hope this resonates, the creator has something bigger in store for you. And the navigation, if you will kind of, readjust to send you on the right path. So even like if somebody leaves your life in some capacity, whether that's an employee, a client, someone in your life, that means that the creator is making room for a bigger, stronger vessel for you. And so that's the consciousness. And so it's true that sometimes you have a plan or you have a goal and it doesn't go necessarily as planned, but that's because there's something bigger in store for you. And when you have that certainty consciousness, certainty is much stronger than confidence and self-belief. Certainty is in knowing, right? That's the biggest connection that you can have is in knowing. Then you'll always be taking care of it or one way or the other. And sometimes it won't show up on the spot. Sometimes you'll be like, wow, we're really off from that goal. I'm curious. I can't wait to find out why. And then something happened a few months later, or you'll be directed on the correct path. But this only happens this way when you're truly doing the inner work and really connected to that. No agenda, doing things for the right reason. So it'll always end up good, net positive in some capacity. Now, on the flip side, if something doesn't go your way, maybe that's an indication that you did have an agenda, that you were doing it for the wrong reasons, that you were in ego consciousness, right? And I'll give you an example that's pretty personal. I was getting ready to run my 8th marathon 2 weeks ago, the New York City Marathon. I had a beautiful training camp. I hired a new coach, great vibes, great energy. Everything was going good. And then about 2 weeks before the marathon, 3 things happened back to back to back. Number one, I had a pretty severe calf strain, had to get an MRI, do PT, and I kind of had to stop running for a little bit. Then my wife and I got rocked with food poisoning. I think it must have been something worse because this took me out of commission for almost a week. I was still doing stuff, but like I wasn't myself. And then on top of that, I had a flare up, which I get maybe twice a year, of sciatica. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced that, but it's pretty humbling and debilitating. You can barely even walk. And so I had the sciatica all the way up to the Saturday before the marathon, the night before. And so at that point, I had to ask myself and get really, really, really intentional and put it out there to the greater. Are these things happening because the opponent, Satan, whatever you want to call it, doesn't want us to run this thing because the amount of light that's going to be revealed? Or is this the creator saying, listen, Craig, I think you're good with the marathon season. You found that in a dark place. You're in a new phase of your life now. You don't have to do these things. Maybe it's ego, like you have to prove something. And so I had to sit with that. And what came through was when I was able to really shift my consciousness, I really just want to run this thing. I want to do a really good job. And then I want to share about my lessons to the community and so forth afterwards. And so we did run it. And I woke up that Sunday feeling absolutely perfect. Haven't felt that good in months. Ran the best time I ever ran, 3:23:57. It was a PR. It was a beautiful day. But it just goes to show you when things aren't going your way, it's an indication to say either the creator has bigger plans for you, or maybe my consciousness isn't correct. It's either ego or I had an agenda or I was looking for recognition. And then that gives you an opportunity to either pull away or shift your consciousness and redo it for the right reason. So you always have to check in with yourself and take inventory.
Oh, that's such a great example. And I love that you mentioned we have the ability to shift, because I think sometimes we recognize that maybe something is off and we sit. Back to the cost of inaction. We literally just sit in it. We don't necessarily give ourselves permission to shift and say, okay, like now let me go in a different direction. So for these last, what is it, 5 years now? So since the pandemic, we're going into so it's about 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for these last 4 years, you have created the reinvention formula. What does that look like? It sounds like it's full of different shifts and tools for how you can shift. What is the reinvention formula, high level?
Yeah. So I think that we should be reinventing ourselves in some capacity every single day. When you look at my story, it's obvious to see and extract that I reinvented my career. But when I say reinvent yourself, I think we should be reinventing our consciousness each and every single day. Continuously connect to something bigger. Make sure we're doing it for the right reasons. Make sure we're in alignment. We're utilizing our gifts. We're making a difference. We're expanding, not contracting. And so when it comes to the reinvention formula, if you feel like you're here for more, if you know you have gifts, you want to identify them, if you want to create better relationships, make more money, build a personal brand or anything in between, the book's for you. And it's interesting because I did a TED Talk last year that we just dropped, and it was called Reinventing Reinvention. And when I was doing my homework for this, I wanted to have some data, and it showcased that only 20% of Americans find purpose in the work that they do. Think about how alarming that is. And to be clear, I was amongst the other 80% for 13 years because I didn't have much purpose. And so it's so important to make sure that we're connected to a purpose, to something more meaningful, that we're utilizing our gifts, that we're constantly transforming and correcting our own negative tendencies, which I believe is another big reason as to why we're here, and on the path. And so whether it is a career pivot or it's just a mentality or a consciousness, or you want to do something more meaningful from your life, you want to go from success to significance, then this book is for you. And I talk a lot about my story specifically and how I was able to do that, but also the 15 years of personal development that I was studying like a lunatic while I was on Wall Street. and then finally leveraging that to make that my life's mission. And so reinvention has a bad rap. It's not just about a career pivot. It's about constantly making sure that you're in alignment, you're utilizing your gifts, and you're doing something very purposeful and meaningful with your life. And oh, by the way, when you do that, the money will come. Trust me.
Absolutely. I'm in full agreement with that. And my original background before it became more personal development focused was in personal finance. And I was obsessed with financial psychology before I knew it was an actual discipline, and basically just what makes people do the things that they do with their money, even when they're saying something different. And so I became obsessed with that. And what I realized and have said on this podcast for the full 7 years is that when we are not doing something in alignment with our purpose, it creates this sensation or this void, this feeling of a void. And most people will try to fill the void by buying things, buying people, just buying stuff, Craig. And they think that that's going to fill the void. But the true void is the lack of purpose. It's the lack of fulfillment that comes from doing something that is greater than you, that is truly a blessing to other people. And I always say that when it's only about what excites you, even with making money, it's like if you only make money just to make yourself money and you're passionate about just making money, well, that's still just about you. But when you know that the money that you receive, you have plans for it. You have plans to do greater things, maybe to give. Not that you want to give it all away, but that you have plans to give and you can see a greater purpose for that money. Now, purpose is the thing that is leading the show and leading the conversation. And also, it is filling that void. Hey, Purpose Chaser. Now, I'm all about staying aligned with my fit pillar, but as a business entrepreneur and speaker, always on the go, staying consistent with my workouts used to be a struggle. That's why I love the Future app. It's a game changer for anyone with a hectic schedule who still wants to prioritize their fitness. With Future, I get a personal trainer. Shout out to my amazing coach, Sydney, who creates workouts tailored specifically to me. So whether I'm at my home gym, in a hotel, or traveling, I can fit in a quick session or a full workout that fits my schedule. And the best part, Sydney keeps me accountable by checking in, adjusting my plan, and celebrating my progress. If you are someone who needs flexibility but doesn't want to compromise on results, Future is for you. Plus, they've got everything from strength training to cardio and flexibility, all designed to help you crush your fit pillar goals. If you're ready to level up your workouts, head to patricewashington.com/future to get started. That's patricewashington.com/future. And let's stay fit together, no matter where life takes us. You keep talking about this, and I just want to mention here that I was very clear for the faith pillar. So we have the 6 pillars of wealth here. And the 4th pillar is faith. And I was very clear when I created Redefining Wealth several years ago that that was about believing in something greater. It was never about subscribing to any particular religion, any particular practice. My thing was just this understanding that if you believed that there was something greater, you would believe that there was greater for you to do. Like you would believe that there was a greater responsibility that you had here, and that a part of your responsibility was to build resilience so you can keep going even when life happens. And whatever practices and whatever consciousness leads you to that, that is the thing I believe is going to lead you through, right? When life gets hard, because we do. I mean, even thinking about what happened to you the weeks and months leading up to the marathon, Craig, I believe 80-90% of people would have just said, oh, I guess I'm not going to be able to do it. Doesn't matter how much they invested in training, new shoes, all the things, like they would have been like, no, I guess this is a sign that I shouldn't do it. And you took it as a way, even in the midst of, having to ask yourself the questions or ask, the creator questions, like you leverage that. And for me, that's a part of the faith pillar. That is that tapping in and knowing that there's a greater reason for why you even have the desire to run an 8th marathon. Because I've never thought to myself, I want to run 8 marathons, not even in my consciousness. I have never said that to myself, but there's a reason that that was in you. And being able to like just tap into your source to figure out how you keep going. That resilience is inspiring.
Thank you for that acknowledgement. And I love the way that you worded that too. We couldn't be more aligned, if I'm being honest.
No, when I first heard you and you were using very similar terms, our continuum at Redefining Wealth begins with awakening. I've heard you talk about that on your page, right? We talk about redefining wealth. We can't redefine anything until we awaken to the fact that something's not right. We have to arise from slumber and get out of autopilot and acknowledge like there is something that needs to change. This frustration is an invitation to take inventory. I have to look at my life and examine what no longer works. And I love what you said even earlier in the conversation about creating that white space. Now, with the platform that you have and all the things you have going on, how do you intentionally still create that white space for yourself so you can think and like really examine what's going on, not while you're in it, but just looking outside the jar?
Unbelievable question. So literally, you have to be intentional and create it. I will actually set time on my calendar now. So I recently started clearing my schedule on Fridays. So essentially, I work 4 days a week and I jam pack those days. But the reason I did that, I still obviously work and do my thing. But on Fridays, I know I'm available for big connections, big downloads, and really reassessing where we're at and thinking about the next level. Additionally, every morning, my wife makes fun of me. I give myself 2 hours every morning for my routine. And so the reason being is because, with what we do, we're constantly sharing, supporting, helping, and we're in other people's affairs all day long, coaching, teaching, all this. I need to plug in. I need to imagine like a phone. Like I need to be at 100% battery every day. And part of my routine in the morning is either reading, scanning, connecting, manifesting, all that stuff. So I do that every day, but I'll take even more time, at least on Fridays and over the weekend, because I know now from experience that if you're just grinding and doing all the things, like that's important, but you can't actually get to the next level, right? So that's why you have to take a step back and connect and be able to receive that one download, that one piece of guidance that can change everything.
Craig, I'm smiling at you as soon as you started talking because we're literally the same person. So
Yeah.
all you are is a white male version of me from the East Coast, and I'm a West Coast girl originally. I'm smiling and laughing because I take Fridays off. And I also, the first 2 hours of the day are mine. It's for me and God, as far as I'm concerned. And I am sitting, I'm praying, I'm meditating, I'm journaling. I may be listening to something. I may feel guided or inspired to go read something in a particular book, turn to a chapter, just read the whole chapter, feel like, oh, I got the inspiration I needed for the day. And I literally do the exact same thing. 2 hours, pretty much, first thing in the morning for me. And then Fridays are my off days. And I imagine my Monday through Thursday might be similar to yours when you talk about it. Like we work, I get it done. But I realize now how important it is to have that thinking time if I'm actually going to act from alignment and intention. I have to have time to process, to think, to ask better questions of myself and of God. I have to create that space because even in doing really good work with the work that we do, if we're not intentional, you can still create the same type of burnout, the same type of miserable lifestyle that you had in another industry or in another arena. You still have to like make sure, because some of the things I believe that made me successful when I was in real estate, when I was a real estate and mortgage broker, those are great traits to have. But if they are not managed well, they can become a problem. And I've realized that in this season of my life, in what I do now, yes, the ambition, the go, 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 like the make it happen, wonderful, love it, excites me, gives me energy, passion, all those things. And if I don't manage it, even with the good work that I do, I could create and cause burnout like I had at that time in my life. And I have to be intentional about creating that space.
I love it. You and I we speak the same language and we couldn't be more on the same page.
Yeah. And then the last part of the redefining wealth continuum is actualizing. And you're one of few people that I hear use that term often as well. And so that's why every time I look at you, I'm like, we need to hang out or something. Like this guy, like
Please.
you use the term actualizing. And so in your community, in your space, in your work, what is actualizing for you? How do you describe that to your community?
When I think of our own individual unique gifts that were given to us, and like I said, I believe we're the manager of them because they're not ours. It's on us to take the time to actualize and identify what they are and authentically share them with the world, right? So identify and then make them your own and share them. And so when I think of that word, that's what I feel connected to, is actualizing them, identifying them, and then the process of sharing them and are in only the way that we can, uniquely, individually, and authentically, because nobody can do it just the way that you can.
I just did a training, an authentic alignment training earlier this week at the time of the recording. And I swear to you, if anyone was on that training and they're listening to us talk right now, they are literally like, oh, she just said that. Yes. Okay, coach. You are just confirming, affirming, reassuring all the things. I love it. Okay. So Craig, before I let you go, because I really could talk to you for the entire day, but before I let you go,
Likewise.
I want to ask you some rapid wisdom questions, and they're just really quick questions that you're going to tell us the first thing that comes to mind. No overthinking at all, whatever flows out. You ready?
I love this. Let's do it.
How do you define success?
Connected to your purpose, making a difference, and living in the vibration of peace.
How do you define wealth in 3 words or less?
Happy, fulfilled, purposeful.
What's one book that has helped you redefine wealth for yourself?
The Secret.
And how can we find, follow, and connect with you?
Anywhere on social media at Craig Siegel _CLS. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, CLS Experience, which we got to get you on. You're on the Instagram show. Let's get you booked for that. Anywhere you buy books, the Reinvention Formula. And we have a community. If you like free inspirational wisdom or nuggets throughout the week, you can text us at 917-634-3796 and text me the word Patrice so that I know that you heard it here.
Say the number one more time, Craig.
917-634-3796.
Perfect. I'll make sure it's in the show notes. Craig, my brother, I enjoyed you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Many people told me that I was going to really like you. Before I actually met you, several people had texted me about, have you met Craig? Have you met Craig? I could go through my phone, and I'm so grateful that we finally had a chance to connect. This was amazing. Hey, if you're a purpose chaser, come into the Redefining Wealth app and tell me what you thought about this episode. Comment, share your aha moments, your takeaways, because I know that this was just jam-packed with all kind of goodies. And also make sure that you share this with someone who needs to reinvent themselves. Maybe it's been you or a friend, a family member who maybe they've been inactive. They know they've been called to do something. They know that there's greater, but they haven't actually been walking it out, examining what those gifts are. Like Craig said, sharing them with the world. And you believe that this episode will be a blessing, especially if it's a guy, because we don't always get guys around here. So, hey, we got a man's perspective and a man's voice today. So this is the episode to share with those that you love. You guys, I am so grateful that you continue to come back to the Redefining Wealth podcast. I will be back next week. But until then, I want you to continue to live your life's purpose, find fulfillment, and keep earning more without ever feeling like you have to chase money. I'll talk to you later.